Am I the butthole for not wrapping my girlfriend's Christmas present? This just happened a few hours ago, and I feel like I need an outsider's perspective on the situation. Me and my girlfriend have been together for just over a year. We have what I'd consider to be a normal, healthy relationship. No major reoccurring issues or anything. I just got a new job a couple of weeks ago, and I've been swamped with training. I'm often tired in the evenings and haven't had much energy to go out for unnecessary shopping or events. I'm basically just reserving my energy for work and seeing my girlfriend. My girlfriend gave me my Christmas presents a couple of days ago since we'll both be out of town visiting family this weekend, and she was really excited to give them to me. She had them wrapped really nicely with themed paper and bows and name tags. They looked great. I was appreciative of the gifts and she seemed satisfied with my reaction. I ordered her present online and it didn't come in until today, so I decided to bring it over as we were going to make dinner together tonight. When I gave her her present, I apologized for the fact that it wasn't wrapped and explained that I had been too tired from work recently to get anything to wrap it with. Her face immediately fell. She thanked me for the gift, but I could tell that something was off for the rest of the night. Before I went home, she admitted that she felt like me not wrapping her gift was proof that I don't put as much effort into our relationship as her. I feel like me getting her the gift is proof that I love her and care about our relationship. It shouldn't matter whether or not it was wrapped. She says that it would have taken almost no effort on my part to get some cheap wrapping paper or a bag to put it in. Am I the butthole? Dude, it's about the effort. You think like a mom or dad of 3 with 2 toddlers and a baby who gets no sleep has the energy to wrap a ton of gifts? No, but they do it anyway because it shows they care. You had one gift to wrap. GF is right, it was lazy. She feels like she spent time thinking about you and did something thoughtful and sweet. You showed up with an Amazon box? You're the butthole. In general, I wouldn't say you're the here. But greater than she had them wrapped really nicely with themed paper and bows and name tags. They looked great. You had a giant glaring neon sign that she finds gift presentation important. For that, you're the butthole. You're really saying you couldn't take 10 minutes to run into a dollar store and grab a gift bag? Am I the butthole for offering my brothers a place to stay and calling CPS on my parents? I, 28 male, have been low contact with my family for a very long time, practically since I started college a decade ago. The only exception is my brother, let's call him Alexis, 15 male, who I've been writing letters to practically since I left. He's always been my baby boy and we were very close in those first few years of his life. A few weeks ago I got a call from him panicked out of his arse. Apparently he's been left home alone with our youngest brother John, 5 male, for almost 5 months now. This isn't out of character for my parents, they've never been the most attentive, but I used to believe it was on me. They had me when they themselves were kids, you see, and I figured they resented me for it. I realize now they just suck. It broke my heart he didn't have the courage to tell me sooner, but I told him they'd always be welcomed at our home. My parents' house is pretty close to our house, so I offered to pick my brothers up for a brotherly bonding sleepover. Alexis texted my parents for permission, just to make sure we weren't as likely to be accused of kidnapping, and after they said yes I drove and picked them up. I would have probably gone and stayed there or at least dropped off stuff regularly if they had said no. I got to meet my babyest brother. He settled down surprisingly easy. My daughter is around his age, which definitely helped. Me and Alexis got to have a few moments alone while he was settling down in the guest room and he just broke down. He was so exhausted and stressed from having to be an adult and care for John for so long. I couldn't be prouder of him, but I'm so sad and angry that he hasn't gotten to enjoy his first year of high school at all because of this. I asked a friend of mine who works with CPS what could be done, and she recommended I keep them in my care with my parents' permission and report the whole situation. So I did. Took CPS a bit to step in, but there's finally been some movement. My brothers had to go back to my parents' house for a bit. I've been told they either have to go to another adult in our family, which will have to be me, since our aunts and uncles are back in our home country, or go into the system, which I refuse to allow. That's where we're at for now, dealing with all that. I thought I was doing the right thing, but recently some of my friends from college are telling me I acted without thinking and could ruin my brothers' lives as well as our parents. And 2 of my aunts have even come to visit and absolutely berated me for putting all of this on my parents. I've also gotten countless calls from family back in our home country calling me a selfish bastard. I understand my parents have struggled a lot in their lives and I can see how my actions may absolutely ruin their lives, but I can't just do nothing. Still, all this talk and especially my college friends have me anxious and confused. So, am I the butthole? Not the butthole. I want to make sure I read this right. They left 15-year-old to take care of a 5-year-old for 5 months. I'm pretty anti-calling CPS, but that is firmly in the it's time to call CPS zone. Hard not the butthole. A 15-year-old should not be home alone with a 5-year-old for 2 nights, let alone 5 months. CPS should have been involved 4.5 months ago. Your brother is incredible, but he should never have been in that position. You did not ruin anyone's life. Your parents made a choice to leave a young teen in charge of a young child without adult supervision indefinitely. That was a choice, and choices have consequences. Their consequence will likely be losing custody of their sons. For your friends, tell them their attitude is the reason child abuse perpetuates. For your aunts, ask them where they were and why they weren't helping your brother. Ask them why they think a 15-year-old should be the sole caretaker for a 5-year-old when both have been abandoned by their parents. Ask your family members back home if they plan on moving there to live in the home to care for both boys, since your parents are clearly unwilling to. You absolutely did the right thing. Not the butthole. Ignore those anti-buttholes and other problematic adults. It doesn't matter if they have money. You do not leave a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old alone for months. The parents will be lucky if they don't get a charge from the state for child abandonment and abuse. Edit: where the frick were these ants these past 5 months? Not living and checking on the kids, I assume. Not the butthole 5 months? Frick your family and frick your college friends and frick your parents. Take your brothers in and good luck. Am I the butthole for telling my aunt I will stick to the curfew my toxic mom made till either I become independent or she takes me in? After my aunt, Linda, heard about how my mom set a curfew for us at 6 p.m. and if we don't stick to it we would have no dinner, she sat me down in private and told me that my mom is very sick and she's only been placating her / not taking her seriously so they could still be close. She said I was old enough, 17 and a half, to start standing up to her now. I was silent because most of our family members have been telling me similar things like your mom's sick since I was 13, but nobody took actual actions to shield us from her wrath. They'd pretend not to hear her screaming and wait till it's over before coming up to smooth things out. We live in the same apartment complex. I asked Linda, when I stand up to my mom and I face consequences as a result of that, would you take me in? She deflected and said I'm old enough to take responsibility for myself. I insisted she gives an answer about whether she'll help in any way and she said she can't promise me anything. I asked her whether she realizes I'm the one who wants to stand up to mom the most, but that I literally depend on her right now to stay alive since she won't allow me to work during summers and have no savings whatsoever to my name. Linda said it's not that exaggerated, I could stay in a shelter and there are food banks, I'll survive. I'm just a coward and too scared to stand up to her. I told her I am sticking to the curfew with everything I have until I become independent or she takes me in. She got angry and said she knew what I was doing, that I was guilting her into taking care of me and I was being ungrateful for her kind intentions. She said it didn't have to be all or nothing and she's helping the way she knows how. I told her she's easing her own conscience by doing this and has nothing to do with helping, and got up and slammed the door behind me. After that, several of my family members came to me and advised me to not be so unreasonable and thorny and push away people who actually care. I teared up and went out to the library, and now I don't know if I'm at fault for being so defensive about this issue. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Your Aunt Linda is a real piece of work. I think you are the one who is seeing the situation clearly, and I'm so sorry that your family is unwilling to support or defend you. You are completely in the right here, and she is definitely just trying to ease her conscience without offering you any real help or way out. It's terrible that you've had to go through this, but you are clearly strong and intelligent, and I believe you will overcome your upbringing and be a wonderful success. Good luck and be safe. Not the butthole. Your aunt is naive to think that she is helping by saying this. You are doing what's best to maintain your safety and health. Shelters and food banks should not have to be your safety net at 17. Now you do need to start making a plan to get out and make your own money, cause your mother isn't gonna get magically less crazy when you are 18. At that point you risk getting kicked out. Also, do you have younger siblings? Not getting food as a punishment is abuse. If you are in a country with decent child protective services, it may be time to gather evidence and report her. Am I the butthole for telling my sister-in-law she could always go home after she got angry over my father-in-law asking my son what he wanted to eat for dinner? Once a month we'll have dinner with my in-laws. It usually takes place at their home, but this month they suggested we eat out. When we arrived at their home, my father-in-law asked my son what he wanted to eat. As my in-laws never asked her daughters or anyone else, my sister-in-law was angry and claimed they always favored my son over them, which isn't true. She raised her voice and was making comments about how they only cared about their little prince, which is what my in-laws call my son. She was upsetting my son and making him feel like he did something wrong, so I was getting angry too. I told her she could always go home if she had a problem with it, which only made her angrier. Her husband had to take her into another room to calm her down, and my husband made a comment about how I hadn't helped the situation. She did apologize to my in-laws but was acting like I didn't exist for the rest of the night, even though we were sitting directly opposite each other. Was I the butthole? If they never ask about her daughters, and always cater to your son, then yes, they favor him, and I understand the frustration. She probably could have handled it better. But it's rough seeing your child always treated less than another. I'm going everybody sucks here for how she handled it and how you responded. Also, for the grandparents seemingly playing favorites. Everybody sucks here. Favoritism between grandchildren is a real issue, and while your Sill's reaction was unreasonable, especially in front of everyone, you had no right to tell her to leave someone else's house. Would I be the butthole for giving my old cello to a fellow student in need and not my niece-in-law? I've, 36 male, been learning the cello for 8 years and attending the same music school since starting. I started learning late in life because I grew up in a poor family that couldn't afford things like instruments and music lessons. I met Chloe while we were both waiting to go into our lessons a few years back. We speak often about random stuff on the regular because our lessons have always fallen into the same time slot and we're both in the orchestra etc. She's about 13, very polite and eager to learn and treats her very cheap rubbish instrument that her parents got for her from an online store like Gold. I know her parents, they're lovely people. It's all they can afford. I'm not shaming them, but if you know anything about instruments you know what I mean. It's also only half size and far too small for her, but there's not a single scratch on it and she practices every spare minute. I've recently upgraded to a performer instrument and a trade-in on my $9,000 cello would have gotten me only $4,000 back, so I decided to keep it and sell it myself. I'm pretty well off now, but I know what it's like to be where Chloe is, so I've taken pity on her. I usually gift her something at Christmas, like her next grade of music book, rosin and a gift card from the local luthier to get a new bow and have her instrument serviced, but having not had time to list my old cello for sale or even know where to, my good deed strings got plucked at thinking that my old instrument would likely mean the world to someone like Chloe whose parents will likely never afford a decent instrument for her, but stupid me mentioned this idea to my sister-in-law Gail, who has a daughter, 14 female, we'll call her Alice, and she told me that Alice wants to learn the cello and insisted that I give the instrument to her daughter instead as it's too valuable to give to a stranger's kid. Alice is her own little dude and we get along quite well, but she has never mentioned wanting to learn an instrument to me until she watched Wednesday and now it's cool all of a sudden. Alice hasn't stuck with anything for long. She follows fads and jumps from one thing to another and is, for lack of a better word, spoilt, and based on her track record, handing her anything other than a student cello as her first instrument would be a waste, as I'm unable to convince myself that she would even practice, let alone reach a point that would call for this level of instrument. Where Chloe is at a point where yes, this instrument is slightly too big for her right now, but she needs it, and call me what you'd like for this part, but I'd feel happier about giving it away to someone that needs it like Chloe rather than someone that just wants it but is connected to me, you know. But that has me worried that I might be seen as in a hole on this decision. Family first? The music school is putting on Christmas carols tonight and I intend to gift the cello to Chloe at the end, but I'm still conflicted about it. Edit. Update is in this thread. Thank you to everyone for taking time to respond. Not the butthole for gifting your cello to Chloe. Based on the details, I would give it to Chloe over the niece-in-law as well. Not the butthole. You want that cello to be used, played and loved, and Chloe will do that. I ended up giving my daughter's old harp to a little girl who was learning. Sure, I could have sold it, but I'd rather someone use it who wouldn't get the chance to otherwise. Am I the butthole for naming my baby the same name as my cousin's baby that was miscarried late in pregnancy? Am I the butthole for naming my baby the same name as my cousin's baby that was miscarried late in pregnancy? My cousin had a miscarriage late in the pregnancy after they had already announced the name. Now years later I'm pregnant and would like to name the child the same name. It has been a name I have always loved and was planning on naming my baby it even prior to hearing my cousin's baby's name. My cousin is upset since it was a traumatic experience and feels name shouldn't be used by the family. Am I the butthole for using the name anyway? More context, we see each other less than a handful of times a year outside of social media, but we're close growing up. She has been able to have other children. You're the butthole. It doesn't matter if you've been dreaming of naming your baby this name since the day you were born. It doesn't matter if you only see her once a year. The context has changed. A baby with the same name died. A baby who was a member of your family, your cousin's daughter. Don't be that person. Find a new name. You're the butthole. In your mind it's your cousin's miscarriage. In her mind it's an actual real human that she loved and lost. Would you do the same thing if the baby had been born but hadn't survived? I think what you're doing is horribly insensitive. Am I the butthole for reminding my dad he's not my son's parent? I'm 26 now. When I was a freshman in college, me and this older woman hooked up and she got pregnant. There was a lot of drama. My son Matthew was born and her crazy family wanted to adopt him, but my dad ended up being the one who adopted him. My parents, who have been divorced for 20 years, told me that they rather I go back to college and establish myself so I can be the father I needed to be for Matthew. I was still a kid myself. Maybe I wasn't there every day. Now I'm about to get married and my fiance loves Matthew as much as I do. We both make good money and just bought a house. Over the years my dad has started to treat me like I'm just Matthew's older brother. He's 7 and I'm actually a responsible adult. Basically I want Matthew to start living with me and I take charge of him. My dad is being an ass now about it, even going as far as to tell me that I need permission from him to spend time with my son. He's my son regardless of what paperwork my parents made me sign. A lot of things bother me about how my dad is taking care of my son, and my mom sides with him every time. I would do things very differently. I reminded that my goal is to take him back. My dad said that's not going to happen. I reminded him that he is not his dad and never will be. Then I told him that I don't even agree with how he's running things and I can do better. Hey dude, why should I ask my dad permission to take my kid out with my girlfriend, who is going to be his stepmom, but my 19-year-old brother takes him to the beach without asking? I also should have a say in things like school and medical stuff. I'm not a teenager anymore. Edit, my dad is 56. He'll be in his 60s when Matthew is a middle schooler. Edit, basically my dad tricked me into signing those papers. He literally stole my kid from me. What kind of dad does that? He planned it all along. You're the butthole. Your father/parents adopted him. Legally, that makes them parents. Plus, he's 7. He has a home, and a stable life. You don't get to throw that into chaos just because you feel ready now. What you want doesn't matter, at all. What matters is the best interest of the child. And you've given no reasons why this child's best interest is to leave the only home he's known, and the parents who have cared for him, and live with you. You're the butthole. If your dad adopted Matthew, he is Matthew's dad. He has been Matthew's dad for 7 years. If there was a temporary custody arrangement in place saying that when you reach a certain age, you'll take over parental responsibility again, then I'll change my ruling, but you said your dad adopted him, making your dad his dad. You don't get to change your mind 7 years in, because it's now convenient. Unless that was always the agreement. Am I the butthole for telling my cousin that his girlfriend's needs aren't as important as my daughter's? My daughter is autistic and has a support dog. He's an Anatolian Shepherd, so a big scary dog. He was initially supposed to be a livestock guardian for my dad, but when I took my daughter to meet him they kind of bonded. We ended up with him a few weeks later due to him being generally bad at his job, and now he works to support my daughter, and she absolutely loves him. This is all to say we have a very big dog who looks very mean sometimes. He's sweet as anything, though. My cousin's girlfriend is terrified of dogs. The first time she saw him she refused to come in the house. We have a pretty big house, so family meals are usually held at mine. This is obviously posing an issue as his girlfriend won't come into my house because of the dog. We have crated him for very short periods so she could come in, but she's clearly very uncomfortable, and my daughter gets very nervous around new people without him present. I've explained that there isn't any compromise to make, and my cousin is quite annoyed, asking why we couldn't just leave the dog home and eat elsewhere. Honestly, I wouldn't mind, as I could just leave my daughter with her mom, but no one else wants to cook lol. In my opinion, if he wants to reinforce family bonding so much, he should offer to cook. Anyway, it's a serious issue right now and causing arguments within family. It all came to a head last night when they dropped off my dad. He's staying for Christmas. Anyway, my cousin started yelling, asked me why I hated his girlfriend so much and couldn't accommodate her. I told him his girlfriend's fears weren't as important to me as my daughter's comfort. My dad ended up cooling it down and essentially called me an butthole. She can't control her fears and all that. So, am I the butthole? I feel a little bad, but my daughter feeling comfort is more important to me. Duh. Imagine coming into your home, eating your food and expecting you to get rid of the dog that calms your daughter. Funny how they can all complain, but none offer to open their home and bank account to change the house. Ask him and your dad why they both hate your daughter. Since they both like to open their entitled mouth to spew ridiculousness. The sheer audacity. Not the butthole. Your cousin's girlfriend can't control her fears? That's nice. Your autistic daughter can't control her fears either, and it's her freaking house. Your cousin and dad both need to get over themselves before they stop getting invited for Christmas. Am I the butthole for screaming at my mom over Legos? My mom, 60 female, and I have a difficult relationship. I, 25 female, have been making Lego sculptures since I was a kid. When I was living there, I made a few big sculptures, one of which I made with my best friend when we were 16 to 17 of a big 3D rainbow with a pot of gold and a leprechaun sliding down it. We designed it ourselves. This is art to me. I recently moved out and hadn't had a chance to move all of my stuff yet. My best friend passed away in a car accident 2 years ago, and we had been friends literally since we were babies. We were like sisters. I have an older brother, 32 male, who brought my nephew, 5 male, over to stay at my parents' house. He lives out of town and rarely visits. My mom decided it would be okay to let my nephew totally ruin the sculpture I made with my best friend. Not only did it take hundreds of hours, it is also irreplaceable. He broke it into a bunch of pieces and broke some of the pieces. I absolutely lost it at my mom. I told her she had no respect for me, and was a complete piece of crap for letting my nephew destroy one of the most important things I owned. I threatened to sue her. She said that Legos are for kids anyway, and that since I moved all of my loose bricks already, He didn't have any to play with, which just upset me more. I honestly feel like cutting her out of my life, but I have to know, am I the butthole? I know it would take me a long time, but I can and do intend to fix it. Edit, I moved out a little over a week ago, and plan to come for my 2 larger sculptures tomorrow. This sculpture was roughly 4*x6. My mom is a malignant narcissist and I have been the scapegoat child for my entire life. Not the butthole, and you're not wrong for wanting to cut her out of your life. She sounds manipulative to place the blame on you for not having Legos at the ready for your nephew to play and for invalidating your anger because Legos are for kids anyway. You could possibly sue your mother, seeing as it caused you emotional stress and property damage. Make sure to have pictures of the before and after. Not the butthole. Even if it was a few blocks stuck together haphazardly, it's something that someone did that you were close to and they can't help replace it. Your mother is insensitive. Losing something like that's something that a friend and I spent hours and hours on would wreck me. Personally, I would never be able to forgive her. It's not just Legos, it's the time spent with someone who is no longer with you. The physical representation of all those memories. Hell, I'm tearing up just thinking about that loss. Not the butthole. Very thoughtless of your mother. Not the butthole. It doesn't matter what material the sculpture was made of, it was made by you and your best friend, was original and important and loved. You're barely moved out and had solid plans to collect it. She did this deliberately, I suspect. Am I the butthole for not asking my fiance before letting my son move in with his sister? I, 43 female, have 4 children ages, female, 21, female, 20, female, 18 and, male, 16. My fiance, 38 male, and I are team truck drivers, and we are on the road for a couple months at a time, leaving my son with my 18-year-old at a house we are renting. Well, we are making some changes to our finances in order to buy a house, which means downsizing. We are moving out of the rented house, and my finance's parents are letting us move into a camper they have on some empty property they own in a different state from where we live now. My fiancé is not my children's biological father. Their father is not in the picture. I have raised them by myself since about 10 months after my son was born. My fiancé and I have been together for 2 years. My son has voiced that he doesn't want to move away from his school, his friends, and his sisters. So I allowed my son to stay with his sister, who is okay with that. Here is where I may be the butthole. I didn't talk to my fiancé before making the decision to let my son stay with his sister. My fiancé says I should have asked him how he felt about that. My thinking was, I am his mother, biologically, and legally. I don't need to consult anyone other than myself, my daughter, and my son because those are the only ones directly involved. My fiancé wants to force my son to move when he doesn't want to a camper, by himself, in an unfamiliar place, around unfamiliar people. Essentially ripping him from his friends, his school, and his family. I moved around a lot as a kid because of my family's affiliation with the military. I didn't have a choice. My son has options. And I am trying to take his mental health into consideration. So am I the butthole for not asking my fiancé before allowing my son to move in with his sister? Edit to add, he is moving in with his oldest sister, 21 female, and her BF. Not the butthole. This is none of your fiancé's business. Not the butthole. I think you did what is right for your son and that's what is important. I guess I understand why your fiancé wants to be included in what he sees as family decisions, but what I don't understand is why he would want to force your son to move away from family and be in a trailer alone for months at a time. That just seems unfair. Not the butthole. You could have asked his opinion, but as you stated, your fiancé has no legal say. Your son is used to living with his sister because of your job. As long as everything is in place and legal, I know this can vary from place to place, why wouldn't this be a good fit? Did your fiancé have plans for your son, like another income in the household? Why is he so adamant about your son living with you? Am I the butthole for taking makeup off my daughter? For context, my daughter is 2.5, or for some of you people that go by months, 31 months. While I was making dinner tonight, my daughter got into my wife's makeup and got it all over herself. While it's expensive and it sucks, it happens. She's again, 2.5. I got a baby wipe and wiped it off her face and said to her, "Baby, you're so beautiful. I don't think you need any of this makeup though. You should let your natural beauty shine through." From the other room, my wife yelled, "Don't put her down. Don't make her feel bad." Now, if I am in the wrong I will absolutely admit it. But I don't think I am. In my mind, I was trying to give my daughter some positive reinforcement. I didn't scold her for wearing makeup or even scold her for getting into it because it shouldn't have been left in the open anyway. Am I the butthole here? Not the butthole. You didn't scold her or put her down in any way. It's a gentle way to stop her getting into it again. No buttholes here. I think the lesson you need to teach her is don't play with mom's expensive makeup. But we don't necessarily use makeup because we aren't confident with how we look, just as a side note. But you both sounds like you just care about your kid, which is how it should be. Whilst I'm sure your daughter is both beautiful either with or without makeup, she's more likely doing it because she is imitating her mom. I was obsessed with doing everything my dad did at that age. He even made me a razor, a nice lolly stick with some Lego glued to the end smile. Maybe but her a little makeup set of her own. They make kids play stuff suitable for sensitive skin, or, and I don't know if they even make these anymore because I am old, those pretend plastic makeup sets. Am I the butthole for telling my roommate's family that I'm not his girlfriend? For the last year and a half I, 29 female, have lived in a 2BR app with a male roommate, 27 male. We met each other through a mutual friend, 27 female, who introduced us when I moved to her city and was looking for roommates. He happens to be gay. He is out to everyone except his parents/family, who he says would not accept him for it because they are from a socially conservative country. A while ago he came to me and confessed that he had told his parents I was his girlfriend who he was living with, and asked me if I was okay with that. I was taken aback, but I know about his struggles with his family and he assured me that I would never meet them since they live in a faraway country. He said I wouldn't even hear from them as his parents aren't really on social media except WhatsApp. That was like 8 months ago. A couple weeks ago he springs another surprise on me, and tells me that his aunt, technically his father's cousin not sister, uncle, and their son who live in his country of origin are on a trip and will be stopping by to visit him for a weekend. He asks if I can tell them I'm his GF because that's what they believe from his parents. I was not okay with that. It was one thing when it was some faraway strangers, but I didn't want to lie to his relative's face. But he was really persistent about it and said I would only meet them briefly because they were staying in an Airbnb and he would spend most of the weekend taking them around the city. So on the day they were arriving, he gives me directions on how to lie to them. He asked me to tell them I'm swamped with work, which is why I couldn't accompany them over the weekend, because I refused to do that, and even to keep the door to my room shut so they wouldn't know I had my own bedroom. As he said, I only met them briefly on Saturday. And on Sunday I was out and didn't see them again until 8 p.m. when they all unexpectedly came into the app to say goodbye to me. I was forced to sit with them in the living room and make conversation with them, which was incredibly uncomfortable. Finally, after over an hour they were ready to leave and his aunt suggested we take a group photo. That was my breaking point. The idea of a picture of me as his girlfriend being shared with his whole family just seemed so ridiculous and I couldn't help myself. I blurted out that I was really sorry for lying but I'm actually his roommate not his GF. They were very confused and asked why I said I was and I told them to ask him. After they had left, he was so pissed at me he was literally shaking. And since then, he's been giving me the silent treatment and is totally ignoring me. Also, our mutual friend is mad at me too, accusing me of outing him to his family. I did no such thing, all I did was stop the bullcrap. Am I the butthole? Everybody sucks here. You would have been totally NTA if you had said no. But you agreed, went along with it, and then blurted it out in a way that caused a great deal of drama and embarrassment. He shouldn't have asked you to lie. You shouldn't have agreed. But you definitely shouldn't have made the scene you did. Info, when you say socially conservative country, are we talking his family might disown him conservative, or do you mean a country where he might be executed by his government for being gay? Everybody sucks here. Him for putting you in this position, especially having already lied about you without your knowledge, but also you a little bit for letting it get that far up until the picture. You knew you weren't comfortable, you probably should have said a flat out no and stuck to it before the aunt even showed up. I'm sorry you had to deal with this, but I would consider finding someone else to live with if I were you. His pestering of you demonstrates a clear lack of respect for your boundaries. Am I the butthole for quitting my job because I got written up, leaving my store shorthanded? As the title suggests, I just quit my job. I was employed at a mid-sized grocery for 3 years and 2 days ago was the final straw. We had been short-staffed for several months. On my team there were supposed to be 7 employees and we only maintained 4. We would hire workers but they wouldn't work out for one reason or another, so we were consistently at 4 employees. With this, we had to constantly stay later than scheduled to make sure the job got done. Upper management would be pissed that we stayed late and also pissed if we didn't finish, so we were always in trouble. 2 weeks ago they hired a new guy, Bob, and at first he seemed pretty decent. I started to notice little things he was doing wrong, like stocking stuff crooked or in the wrong spot. Ordinarily I wouldn't have cared, but part of my job involved working after him, so it would take me longer to do my job because I had to fix his mistakes. I informed my manager James that he needed to work with this guy and train him better. That didn't happen. To be more clear about the job, we get a truck and stock every other day. In between truck/stock days one of the crew straightens up the store. Usually it's me. So I end up seeing and fixing whatever things the other guys screw up. Last Monday, James tells me that the store manager isn't happy that I'm staying late on the off-truck days. He says it's wasting the budget and I need to leave on time. I take him to one of the aisles that Bob works and show him several sections that are slowing me down and explain to him that the store manager would flip if he saw it. So does he want me to fix it or not? I tell him if he trains Bob better then I can leave on time. He agreed that it couldn't be left unfixed and said he would talk to Bob. Again, that didn't happen. Bob kept doing what he had been doing, so the next 2 off-truck days, Tues-Thurs, I didn't fix it and left on time. When I got to work Saturday, I get a verbal write-up for the things I didn't fix because the store wasn't in good condition. I stayed and made sure the store was good and ended up leaving later than scheduled. Monday when I get to work I get called into the store manager's office and written up again. James wasn't there. This time for wasting payroll for staying late on Saturday. He goes on about how I was warned, how it shouldn't take that long to straighten the shelves. I let him say all he had to say and then I told him he could find someone else to do it and went home. Now James has been texting me asking me what happened and asking me to come back. He says that he explained to the store manager why I was taking so long and he said I could come back because we're so understaffed, the crew needs me and I shouldn't be without a job at Christmas time. Edit, thanks to all who wish me well in finding another job. This was my second job and part-time. I had figured it wise to save up money because of the nonsense happening. So no worries, I'm good. Edit 2, the reason the budget is so screwed up is that it's done by department and by our department being understaffed, we had extra payroll which they used to slot other departments' workers under. So if Department A needs to have another worker, they will code them under our payroll and have them work in Department A. So technically we do have 7 employees on paper, but 3 of them don't actually work with / for us in our department just pays for them. It's a dirty trick to keep other areas staffed in the district from wondering why our department has high turnover. Not the butthole. Let them know you'll come back for a 20% raise and both write-ups sticking from your record, along with the freedom to work overtime at your own discretion. Anything short of that can fly a kite. If your store is that short, others will be too. You'll be able to find a similar or better job without too much difficulty. Good luck. Not the butthole, you told them it needed to be fixed, they didn't fix it, and you got in trouble for it. You deserve better than that, especially since they have shown that they will not fix what is wrong on multiple occasions. Stick to your guns and you'll find a better job. No, you are being exploited. There are supposed to be 7 people on your team and they are only 4, and your managers are complaining about your overtime? They should be thanking you for picking up the slack. The undelivered message here, they want you to clock out on time and stay late. You can find another job, don't let them guilt you into coming back. Not the butthole. Am I the butthole for not trusting my brother around my place and locking my belongings in my room before going out? My brother, Jay, is 5 years older than me and at some point growing up, he began stealing things from the house. I don't blame him one bit for that as our dad abandoned us and mom was crazy. He was a teenager when the stealing started and we were constantly in fear of living in the streets the next day. So, I understand him more than anyone else. But, it doesn't mean I ever trusted Jay around my belongings. Anything I wanted to actually keep I would just hide it and got very creative with my hiding places. I recently finally had my own place, no roommates. Jay, his wife, and mom came over with some food to congratulate me for the new home. Mom and his wife wanted to take a walk around the neighborhood and see what's going on but Jay said he was too tired from driving and just wanted to sleep. I got nervous about the idea of leaving him alone in my home with my belongings scattered about so I told them to wait and gathered my things, put them in my room and locked the door. When I went back to the living room, they were all quiet and kept staring at me. Mom asked why I did that and I lied and said I wanted to leave the space clean. She said to take a good look at him, he's a bearded man with a pregnant wife now and I'm still guarding against him. My brother interjected and told her not to bother. He looked very hurt and said to me that just because a person made a mistake doesn't mean you hold it over him the rest of his life. I told him I'm sorry I just don't trust you with my belongings yet. Maybe with time but not right now. Both mom and his wife went off at me then and everyone left on bad terms. I know that my brother has changed these past few years and got a job and got married, but it's really hard for me to just trust him with my own home. I'd get paranoid with him going through my things and scanning my home even if he doesn't take anything. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Trust takes time to earn. And it's your place, so your rules. I think it's only fair that it will take time to trust him again, and no one should force you to trust him. So, no, you're not an A. By the way, has he ever apologized? If not sure I'd trust him so easily. And no, anyone can have a wife and kids, so that doesn't mean he's automatically trustworthy. Naive of others to reason so. Edit, added second paragraph. Not the butthole, he created these experiences. I admire you were upfront. I don't trust you with my belongings yet. The 3 have stern and strong opinions but the reality is they did not live through what you lived through. They don't get a vote. You can love and enjoy someone's company and also protect your things. Both can exist at the same time. Best to you. Am I the butthole for not wanting to share my soup maker with my roommates anymore? I, 24 female, have had a soup maker for 3 years that I take great care of. It's quite expensive and my mom bought it to me as a gift. I don't use it very often, so I'm fine with sharing it. My roommates are using it more often than me, but they often don't wash it right away, like the day after, and it bothers me. The other day they used it and put it neglectfully in the sink, with bits of water on it, and some electronic parts are not supposed to be in contact with water at all, as it would damage the electronics in the long run. I told them as nicely as I could, but they shrugged it off. I feel like they are not taking it seriously. Would I be the butthole for not wanting to share it anymore? Not the butthole. Rule of thumb should be, if you use/borrow something, you return in better condition than you found it. If they can't take care of it, then they don't get access to it. Simple as that. Not the butthole. Your stuff, your rules. They don't comply, your rule becomes no soup for you. Info. What in the world do you mean by a soup maker? Like a saucepan? A slow cooker? A food mill? A blender? Am I the butthole for kicking my sisters and mom out? So I'm 23 years old and I made good decisions to where I'm able to own my home. My mom and 2 sisters live with me for about 2 years now and I want them gone. I pay all the bills in the home, including my mortgage. I was living on my own for about 3 months when my mom asked to move in with me for a little because she couldn't afford rent, and I told her sure, but my sister B brings men over when I'm at work, and when I told her to stop we'll get into an argument and my mom will take her side. Feel like they're depending on me to take care of them and using me. My home doesn't feel like a home no more. Feels more like a hotel. Am I wrong for wanting them all gone? Not the butthole, but you need to do a legal eviction process to get them out of there. Not the butthole. Greater than my mom will take her side. Your mom does not get to overrule your decisions in your house. Am I the butthole for altering my mom's wedding dress? This story involves me, 27 female, my sister A, 31 female, and my mom, 60 female. I'm getting married next year to my wonderful fiance. We are very happy and exited. My mom has a beautiful wedding dress that I have always loved, and so has A. We have both always said we would love to wear it one day, and mom has always said we both could. A is single, she really wants to find someone, get married and have a family, and I want that for her too. I want her to be happy and she will be an amazing mom. I know she is happy for me getting married, but she privately said to my mom how difficult she was finding it that I was getting married before her. So I asked mom if I can wear her dress. A was there, she says yes, as she had said all along I could. However, I am a lot shorter than my mom and sister, I also have a bigger bust. So the dress needs to be altered to fit me. I spoke to a seamstress and asked if it could be done in a reversible way. She said the bust could be taken back in, as she will out in a panel, or something similar, but even if the hem is turned up and pinned, wearing it all day will likely damage it. She doesn't think it can be let back down. I rang mom after to check if this was okay, and she said yes. So I went ahead and told the seamstress to do it. Well, clearly mom told A about it, because she rang me up screaming at me that I had ruined the dress and that she was promised it by mom. I'm a horrible sister, being selfish and stealing this from her. She finished the call by telling me not to contact her and hung up. I was so shocked I didn't say anything, but have been carrying on and off the last 2 days. She said she won't come to Christmas as I'm there. I don't want to cause problems with my family. I'm sorry my sister is sad about the dress, but I don't know what else I could have done. She was there when I asked about the dress and didn't say anything. It was obvious it would need to be shortened, and it's still mom's dress and she gave it the green light. Everyone is pissed at me because my sister has pulled out of Christmas. My fiance says I did nothing wrong. Am I the butthole here? Edit, while the comments are split. But this has made me realize ultimately I have effed up on this. I rang the seamstress to ask if she has started working in the dress yet. This all happened in the last 2 weeks, and she hasn't, so I told her to stop, don't do anything to the dress yet. I'm going to ring my sister, hopefully she picks up, and let her know that nothing has happened yet, and hopefully talk it through with her and apologize for not calling her when I called mom. I'll update when I have tried to talk to her. No buttholes here. I do understand her being upset though. If she'd gotten to wear it first, it sounds like you would have been able to wear it easily after her, but due to the alterations needed, she can't wear it after you. But if I were the mother in this situation and both of my daughters wanted to wear the dress but allowing one to do so would require alterations that can't be undone, I don't think I'd let either of them wear it. Could you wear the dress for the ceremony only with reversible alterations made, then wear another dress for the reception? It's not uncommon for brides to switch dresses at their wedding. You're the butthole for knowing how much the dress meant to your sister, how hard a time she's having with you getting married first and then decided to completely ignore her and not reach out to her about the dress before making alterations. The dress might be in your mom's ownership, but if you care about your sister's feelings, why wouldn't you include her in the conversation about altering the dress? Info: why didn't you talk to your sister? The mom said okay sounds childish. This has always been between your sister and you. Unfortunately you're the butthole because of this. My mom has a beautiful wedding dress that I have always loved, and so has A. We have both always said we would love to wear it one day. So, you knew your sister wanted to wear it. But only checked with your mom about the irreversible alterations. What were you thinking? Of course you should have asked your sister too. And no, the dress needing to be permanently shortened is not obvious. I'm no tailor, I have no idea what goes into adjusting wedding dresses. If you ask me they're all long as frick. I don't know what's reversible or not. If I were you I would tell the seamstress to hold off if it isn't too late. You and your sister need to have a discussion about this together and patch things up. It's not fair if you're the only one who gets to wear the dress simply because you got to the altar first. Am I the butthole for showing a girl my ID to prove I am Latina? I, 19 female, don't look like a stereotypical Mexican woman. I am pretty pale, tall and overweight with no Latino features, so most people think I'm just some plain white American. But both of my parents came from Jalisco, Mexico. I have a pretty stereotypical name and grew up translating legal documents for my parents. Outlining your lips is a common makeup technique used by Pac in the 90s. This has recently popped up again because Hailey Bieber claimed he discovered it and called it brownie lips. Many people from the Chicano community were upset with her and called out people who called it as brownie lips. Anyways, I saw some photos of my mom in the 90s and wanted to recreate her look for a party me and my boyfriend were going to. Keep in mind most of his friends are white. I recreated and honestly I looked good. We made it to the party and just had fun until this girl pulled me to the side. She asked me to take off my makeup and when I asked her why she lectured me on how culturally insensitive it is to wear brownie lips. I eventually asked her why can't I wear it. By this time my BF started paying attention to the conversation. She said it's because I am not Latinx. I laughed and pulled out my ID. She turned pale when she saw my name on it. She is going to say something until she noticed my BF trying not to laugh and walked out. So far she has texted everyone what happened saying I was trying to embarrass her in front of my BF, but everyone seems to be divided. But my boyfriend thinks it was funny how I handled it. I'm just tired and want to get this over with. So AITA? Not the butthole. At all. She stuck her nose where it didn't belong, and you called it out. Strong work. Not the butthole. She embarrassed herself by accusing you, a woman of Latin heritage, of cultural misappropriation. I think you handled it perfectly and she needs to get over herself. I was trying to embarrass her. Nope, not the butthole. She came up to you. She embarrassed herself, trying to be all woke while not even knowing what she was talking about. Not the butthole. What she did, it's really ridiculous. The issue with Hailey Bieber thing was that she claimed to invent something that she didn't. Plus Latinos don't have a look because it's ethnicity and not a race. Am I the butthole? My boyfriend doesn't want to pay his portion of the mortgage because it's only my house. My, 25 female, boyfriend, 25 male, and I have been together a little over 5 years and lived together for approximately 3 years. When we first moved in together, I made significantly more money, ~2x, so we agreed to split expenses on a ratio basis, approximately 30-70 at the time, as opposed to a 50-50 split. When my boyfriend decided he wanted to pursue a new career and go back to school, I was supportive. I'd seen how painful his current job, recruiting, was for him, especially during COVID, and I knew a change would be good for him, and us, personally and professionally. During the 4 months of his accelerated program, he was making no money, so I handled 100% of rent and utilities. I was happy to be in a position to support his dreams and new career, but our relationship wasn't in a good place, and a couple months after he completed the program, we decided to separate. Once he got his new job, he left our apartment to move in with a friend from university, and I finished out the lease on my own. During the time we were separated, I closed on my first house, utilizing a majority of my savings for the down payment, closing costs, etc., but making sure that I could afford the house on my own, and any potential roommates could help lower the cost. After about 6 months separated, he let me know he wanted to try again and recognized where things had gone wrong. Because he signed a new lease when he moved out, our plan was to see how things were going with our relationship while he finished out the lease with his roommate, at which point we could evaluate whether moving in together again made sense. Things are going well and the plan was for him to move in later in January. His new role is more fulfilling and has a much better salary than before, so the equitable split is now closer to 42-58. When we talked about final plans and finances the other day, he got pissed off. He couldn't believe I would ask him to pay that much to live in a house that he doesn't even own and accused me of being clearly desperate for money. For reference, the split payment is $5 more per month, not including utilities, which we didn't even get to discussing, Then his current rent payment, which he and his roommate split 50-50, despite his roommate making way less than my boyfriend. I was confused and surprised by his reaction, as this is the split we've always followed. Am I the butthole for expecting that he'll pay the amount set by the equitable split we've always followed? Edit, should have used the term rent in the title, as opposed to mortgage. In regard to rental agreement, I have suggested that, in line with what others have mentioned regarding rights/protections of both tenants and landlords, so that everything is clear up front for both of us. Not the butthole. He sounds like he thinks he can come in and live rent-free because you're romantically involved. Get a real roommate and he can rent elsewhere. He doesn't seem prepared to cohabitate now. Anywhere he rents is paying someone else's mortgage. Let him stay in his current rented digs. Your house obviously is not paid off, you have a monthly mortgage to meet. You don't need any deadbeats or slackers to not help you to not get it paid off. Not the butthole. I would cancel the plans for him moving in with you, and let him know you want to see how things are going with the relationship for a little longer first. He'll probably break up immediately, and then you should move forward and not look back. Not the butthole. He doesn't move in. Simple. Next time he complains it's not fair, ask him for the money you covered for him that allowed him to change career paths. He sounds like a winner. /S.